It was a bright and sunny Saturday morning. The kind of day where you'd expect everything to feel happy and calm. In a small, quiet neighborhood, the birds were singing loud and clear. The grass on every lawn was cut neat and short, like someone had worked hard to make it look perfect. Flowers bloomed in tidy little rows, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Kids could ride their bikes down the street without worry, and neighbors waved hello with big smiles. Everything seemed just right, like a picture from a storybook. But guess what? It wasn't as perfect as it looked. Something big was hiding under all that peace and quiet, waiting to shake things up. Let me tell you about a guy named Sam Carter. He was the new person in this neighborhood. He moved into the little house on the corner, the one with the red door and the tiny porch. Sam wasn't loud or flashy like some people. He didn't throw big parties or talk a lot. Most of the time, he stayed by himself. If you saw him, he might give you a small nod or a quick hi, then keep walking. He didn't cause trouble or make a fuss. To everyone who lived nearby, Sam was just the new guy, nothing special, nothing strange. They figured he was boring, maybe even shy. But here's the thing they didn't know: Sam wasn't boring at all. He had a secret. A huge, exciting secret that nobody saw coming. And soon, that secret was going to change everything on this sleepy little street. Imagine walking past Sam's house. You'd see him sitting on his porch sometimes, sipping a cup of coffee. His house looked normal: plain curtains in the windows, a little mailbox by the road, nothing fancy. The neighbors didn't think much of him. "Oh, that's just Sam," they'd say with a shrug. "Lives alone, doesn't bother anyone." Kids rode their scooters past his yard without a second look. Dogs barked at squirrels, not at him. Even the mailman dropped off letters and kept going, never wondering who Sam really was. Everyone thought they had him figured out. But they were so wrong. Sam wasn't just some quiet guy who liked to stay out of the way. He was hiding something amazing, something that would make jaws drop and eyes go wide. What could his secret be? That's the fun part you're about to find out. Picture this neighborhood like a puzzle. It looks simple on the outside, but one piece doesn't fit quite right. That piece is Sam. He blended in so well that nobody asked questions. Nobody stopped to think, hey, maybe there's more to this guy. They saw what they wanted to see: a regular man in a regular house. But secrets have a way of sneaking out, don't they? And Sam's secret wasn't small. It was the kind that could turn a sunny day into a wild adventure. It was the kind of secret that makes you say, "Whoa, I didn't see that coming." So, stick with me, because the story is just getting started, and you won't believe what happens next. Let's set the scene a little more. This neighborhood wasn't big, just a few streets with houses lined up nice and close. People knew each other here. They'd chat over fences about the weather or whose dog dug up the garden again. It was the kind of place where nothing crazy ever happened. No big fights, no loud noises, just calm and boring days one after the other. That's why Sam fit in so easy at first. He didn't stick out. He didn't give anyone a reason to stare. But every now and then, someone might notice something tiny, like how Sam's car was always super clean, or how he got mail with fancy envelopes. Little clues, but nobody put them together. They didn't care enough to try. On that sunny Saturday, the street was buzzing with normal stuff. Mrs. Jenkins across the road was watering her roses. Two kids zoomed by on bikes, laughing as they raced. A dad down the block was washing his car, soap suds sliding onto the pavement. Everyone was busy with their own little worlds. Sam stepped outside to grab his newspaper, just like he did every morning. He waved at Mrs. Jenkins, and she waved back with a cheerful good morning. Nothing seemed odd. Nothing seemed out of place. But deep down, Sam knew something the rest of them didn't. He wasn't here just to live a quiet life. He had a reason, a big, important reason for picking this house, this street, this moment. What do you think about Sam so far? Does he sound like someone you'd notice, or someone you'd walk right past? That's the trick. He was good at being invisible. But not for long. See, this neighborhood had rules. Not just the mow your lawn kind, but rules about how people acted. Everyone stayed in line, followed the same routine. And then there was Karen. Oh, you'll meet her soon. She was the bossy one who thought she ran the whole place. She watched everyone like a hawk, ready to pounce if you stepped out of line. Sam hadn't crossed her yet, but that was about to change. His secret was like a storm cloud rolling in slow and quiet. No one saw it, but it was coming. Let's rewind a bit. When Sam first moved in, people were curious for about a day. New neighbor, they'd say, peeking out their windows. But he didn't give them much to talk about. He unloaded a few boxes, parked his car, and that was it. No big moving truck, no loud music, just Sam and his stuff. After a week, the excitement faded. Guess he's just a loner, they decided, and went back to their lives. But Sam wasn't lonely. He was waiting. Waiting for the right time to let his secret out. And that sunny Saturday? It was the day things started to crack. The day the neighborhood's perfect little bubble was about to pop. So, here's where I ask you, what do you think Sam's secret could be? Is he a superhero hiding from bad guys? A spy on a secret mission? Or maybe something even wilder? Drop your guesses below, I'm dying to hear them. This story's got twists you won't see coming, and it all starts with that sunny morning when everything looked fine, but wasn't. Sam Carter wasn't just the new guy. He was a spark ready to light up the whole street. And trust me, you're gonna want to stick around for what happens next. It's big. It's bold. And it's about to turn this quiet little world upside down. Ready? Let's go. Okay, let's talk about the trouble that started brewing in this quiet little neighborhood. Every place has that person you know, the one who acts like they're in charge of everything. Here, that person was Karen Thompson. She was like the queen of the neighborhood, but not the nice kind. Nope, Karen was the bossy type, the kind who made everyone groan when they saw her coming. She walked around with a big clipboard in her hands, pointing at stuff and yelling orders like she owned the whole street. Hey, your grass is half an inch too tall, she'd shout at someone. Or, that mailbox isn't the right size, fix it. She had a loud voice that carried across yards, and her nose was always up in the air like she was better than everyone else. Most people in the neighborhood didn't argue with Karen. They'd just roll their eyes when she wasn't looking and do what she said to keep her quiet. Fine, I'll trim the grass, they'd mutter, or okay, I'll move the mailbox. It was easier that way. Karen was part of something called the HOA, that's a group that makes rules for the neighborhood. And Karen? She took those rules super seriously. Too seriously, if you ask me. She'd march up and down the street, checking every house, looking for anything she could complain about. If your flowers were too bright or your car was parked a little crooked, you'd hear about it. Karen didn't miss a thing. Then Sam Carter moved in, the new guy with the red door on the corner. At first, Karen didn't notice him much. He was quiet, kept his yard neat, didn't make noise. But that didn't last long. See, Karen had sharp eyes, like a hawk hunting for something to swoop down on. And when she spotted Sam, it was like he became her new favorite target. Who does he think he is? She'd grumble to her little group of friends. They'd stand on her porch, sipping lemonade, nodding as she glared across the street at Sam's house. He's new, but he doesn't even say hi to me, she'd huff. He thinks he's so special, doesn't he? Her friends would agree, because that's what they always did, agreed with Karen. It didn't take long for Karen to find something to pick on. One morning, she saw Sam's trash bins still out by the road. Now, the rule was you had to pull them back by 8 a.m. sharp. Sam's bins were out at 8:05, just 5 tiny minutes late. Most people wouldn't care about 5 minutes, right? But Karen? Oh, she cared. She cared a lot. She put on her flip-flops, grabbed her clipboard, and stomped right over to Sam's house like she was on a mission. Bang, bang, bang. She pounded on his door so hard the windows shook. Sam opened it, blinking in the sunlight, looking calm as ever. Your trash bins were out 5 minutes past curfew. Karen snapped, pointing a finger at him. Her voice was loud enough for the whole street to hear. That's against the rules. Sam didn't yell back. He didn't even frown. He just gave her a little smile, the polite kind you'd give a teacher when you're trying to be nice. Oh, sorry about that, he said, his voice soft and steady. I'll take care of it. Then he nodded and closed the door. Simple as that. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. Not with Karen. She stood there on his porch, her mouth hanging open a little. She didn't like how calm he was. She didn't like that he didn't argue or beg her to forgive him. To Karen, Sam wasn't just breaking a rule, he was acting like he didn't care about her rules. And that made her mad. Really mad. From that day on, Karen decided Sam was her enemy. She didn't say it out loud, but you could tell by the way she watched him. Every time he stepped outside, her eyes followed him like lasers. If he mowed his lawn, she'd say the lines weren't straight enough. If he watered his plants, she'd complain the hose was too loud. Who does he think he is, she'd mutter again, scribbling notes on her clipboard. She thought Sam was weak, just some new guy she could boss around. She thought he'd give in, say sorry, and follow her every command. Oh, boy, was she wrong. So wrong. The neighbors started to notice Karen picking on Sam. She's at it again, they'd whisper to each other over their fences. Poor guy can't catch a break. But Sam didn't seem bothered. He'd wave at people, smile like nothing was wrong, and go about his day. That only made Karen madder. He's ignoring me, she'd huff to her friends. He thinks he's above the rules. She'd pace her porch, her flip-flops slapping the wood, planning her next move. She didn't know it yet, but every time she yelled at Sam, she was digging herself into a bigger mess. Sam wasn't weak. He wasn't scared. He was just waiting for the perfect moment. Let's paint the picture a little more. Karen was tall and skinny, with short hair she dyed bright blonde. She always wore big sunglasses, even when it wasn't sunny, and carried that clipboard like it was a crown. She'd lived in the neighborhood forever, longer than most people, and she acted like that made her the boss. I keep this place perfect, she'd say, puffing out her chest. And sure, the street was nice, neat lawns, clean sidewalks, but Karen took it too far. She didn't just want things nice, she wanted everyone to do exactly what she said, when she said it. And Sam? He wasn't playing her game. One afternoon, Karen called a little meeting with her friends on her front lawn. They sat in folding chairs, sipping iced tea, while she ranted about Sam. His trash bins again, she said, waving her arms. And yesterday, I saw him park his car an inch over the line. An inch. Her friends nodded, muttering, oh, that's awful, even though they didn't really care. Karen leaned in close, her voice dropping low. He's trouble, I tell you. We need to teach him a lesson. She thought she had it all figured out. She thought Sam was an easy target, someone she could scare into following her rules. But Sam wasn't scared. He wasn't even annoyed. He was something else, something Karen couldn't guess. See, this is where the tension starts to grow. Karen thought she was the big boss, the one in control. She thought Sam was just a quiet guy she could push around. But every time she banged on his door or yelled across the street, she was missing the truth. Sam wasn't weak at all. He was strong, stronger than she could imagine. And that little smile he gave her? It wasn't because he was afraid. It was because he knew something she didn't. Something big. Something that was going to flip this whole neighborhood upside down. Karen had no idea what was coming. She thought she was winning, but she was so wrong. Stick around, because this is about to get good. Days kept passing in that quiet little neighborhood, and things started heating up. Karen Thompson, the bossy queen of the HOA, wasn't slowing down. Nope, she was getting braver and meaner every single day. She'd march around with her clipboard, looking for anything she could use to pick on Sam Carter, the new guy with the red door. One morning, she stuck a nasty note on his car that said, "Your parking stinks. Move it," in big, angry letters. Another day, she stood in her yard and yelled across the street, "Those flowers of yours are ugly. They don't match the neighborhood." She even said his little daisies looked like weeds. Can you believe that? Daisies are cute. Karen didn't stop there. She started calling little meetings with her friends just so she could talk about Sam. They'd sit on her porch, sipping lemonade, while she went on and on. "He's breaking all the rules," she'd complain, waving her arms like it was the end of the world. "His trash bins, his flowers, his car, he's a problem." Her friends would nod and sip their drinks, agreeing because that's what they always did. But Sam? He didn't seem to care one bit. He'd just sit on his porch, calm as can be, sipping his coffee like nothing was wrong. Too calm, maybe. Way too calm for someone getting picked on so much. Every time Karen left a note or shouted at him, Sam would look over with those quiet eyes of his. He didn't yell back. He didn't stomp his feet or call her names. Nope. He'd just watch her, take a sip of his coffee, and pull out a little notebook. Then he'd scribble something down with a tiny pencil, real quick, before tucking it back in his pocket. What was he writing? Nobody knew. The neighbors started to notice, though. They'd peek out their windows or chat over their fences, whispering to each other. Why doesn't he fight back, they'd ask. Karen's being so mean, why's he just sitting there? Some thought he was scared. Others wondered, what's he waiting for? It was weird. Sam was like a puzzle they couldn't figure out. Karen kept pushing, though. She wasn't happy with just notes and yelling. She wanted to win, to make Sam bow down to her rules. Every day, she got a little louder, a little bouger. If Sam walked his dog, she'd say it barked too much even though it didn't. If he mowed his lawn, she'd complain he did it at the wrong time. Too early, she'd shout, or too late. Nothing Sam did was good enough for her. She'd stand there with her clipboard, tapping her foot, smirking like she was the smartest person around. She thought she had him cornered. She thought he'd give up soon. But Sam didn't budge. He just kept smiling that little smile, watching her like he knew something she didn't. The neighbors started talking more. Karen's gone too far, Mrs. Jenkins said one day, watering her roses. Sam's nice, why's she so mad at him? Down the street, a dad washing his car nodded. Yeah, he doesn't bother anyone. What's her problem? Even the kids riding bikes slowed down to watch Karen stomp around. She's crazy, they'd giggle, pedaling away fast before she saw them. Everyone could see it, Karen was picking on Sam for no good reason. But Sam stayed cool. He'd wave at Mrs. Jenkins, nod at the dad, and keep doing his thing. That notebook, though, it kept showing up. Scribble, scribble, scribble. What was he writing in there? It was a mystery, and it made people curious. Then came the big moment, the one Karen had been waiting for. One sunny morning, she looked out her window and saw Sam's car. It was parked just right, except for one tiny thing. The back tire was an inch over the line she'd painted on the street. That line was her pride and joy, her way of keeping everything perfect. To her, that inch was like a giant slap in the face. That's it, she screeched, loud enough to scare the birds out of the trees. She grabbed her phone, her fingers shaking with excitement, and dialed 911 like it was her personal hotline. Hello, police, she said, her voice sharp and squeaky. There's a man here, a menace. He's breaking all the rules, and I need him stopped. Sam was outside when she made the call. He'd just stepped out to grab his mail, hands in his pockets, whistling a little tune. Karen pointed at him from her porch, yelling into the phone. See him? That's the guy. His car's over the line, an inch over. He's trouble. The operator on the other end probably thought she was nuts, but Karen didn't care. She hung up, crossed her arms, and waited for the cops to come save her day. She thought this was it, her big win. She'd show Sam who was boss once and for all. The neighbors peeked out, whispering again. She called the cops. Over an inch. They couldn't believe it. But there was Sam, standing by his mailbox, not moving, not worried. Just, standing there. And then get this, he smirked. A tiny, sneaky smirk, like he was about to pull a trick. What was he up to? That's the big question, isn't it? Karen thought she had him trapped. She thought the police would roll up, yell at him, maybe even take him away. She could already see it in her head, Sam saying sorry, fixing his car, bowing to her rules. She'd be the hero, the queen who won the fight. But Sam's smirk said something else. That notebook said something else. All those little scribbles, all that watching, he wasn't just sitting there for fun. He was planning. Waiting. And now, with Karen calling the cops, the waiting was almost over. The neighbors leaned closer to their windows. The kids stopped their bikes. Even the dad with the soapy car paused to watch. Something was coming, something big. Karen didn't see it, though. She was too busy gloating. He's done for, she muttered to herself, tapping her clipboard with a grin. She thought Sam was weak, just a quiet guy she could bully. But every note she left, every yell she threw, every meeting she called, it was building up to this. Sam wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was standing right there, hands in his pockets, that smirk growing just a little bigger. What did he know? What was in that notebook? Why wasn't he scared? The tension was thick now, like the air before a storm. Karen thought she was winning, but she was about to find out she'd poked the wrong guy. Stick with me, you're gonna love what happens next. Here we go, this is the moment everything changes. Picture this, a sunny day in the neighborhood, and suddenly, police cars roll up with their lights flashing red and blue. The sirens were off, but those lights made everyone stop and stare. Karen Thompson, the bossy HOA queen, was standing on her porch, practically bouncing with excitement. She'd called the cops on Sam Carter because his car was an inch over her silly line. Now, she thought she'd won. Arrest him, she shouted, pointing at Sam like he'd just robbed a bank or something awful. Her voice was loud and squeaky, and her face had a big, smug grin. She was sure this was her big moment, the day she'd finally beat Sam. The two police officers climbed out of their car, looking serious. They had on dark uniforms with shiny badges pinned to their chests. One was tall with a mustache, and the other was shorter with a notepad in his hand. They walked over to Sam, who was still standing by his mailbox, calm as ever. The neighbors were watching from everywhere, peeking through blinds, leaning over fences, even the kids on bikes stopped to see what was happening. Everyone held their breath. Karen crossed her arms and tapped her foot, waiting for the cops to grab Sam and drag him away. She thought she'd be the hero, the one who fixed the problem on her street. The officers looked at Sam and started asking questions. "Sir, what's going on here?" the tall one said, his voice deep and slow. "We got a call about a parking issue." Sam just nodded, hands still in his pockets, that tiny smirk on his face. "Yeah, I heard," he said, real casual, like he wasn't worried at all. Karen leaned forward, her eyes wide, waiting for him to mess up. The shorter officer scribbled something in his notepad and asked, "Can you tell us your side?" Sam took a deep breath, and then get this, he reached into his jacket. Everyone froze. Karen's eyes lit up like fireworks. She thought, oh, he's done for now. He's pulling out something bad. But what Sam pulled out wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a trick or an excuse. It was a badge, a shiny, silver badge that sparkled in the sunlight. He held it up so everyone could see, and his voice came out strong and clear, like a bell ringing. "I'm Samuel Carter," he said, standing tall. "Federal judge, U.S. District Court." Boom. The whole street went quiet. Dead quiet. You could have heard a leaf fall. Karen's jaw dropped so low it looked like it might hit the ground. Her big sunglasses slid down her nose, and her clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering onto the porch. The cops froze, their eyes big as saucers. The tall one's mustache even twitched a little. The neighbors behind their blinds gasped, some even dropped their coffee cups. A federal judge? Sam. The quiet guy with the red door? Nobody could believe it. This was huge. Karen had been yelling at him for weeks, leaving notes, calling meetings, making a fuss, and all this time, he wasn't just some regular guy. He was a judge, a big, important judge who worked for the government. The kind of person who sits in a courtroom, wears a black robe, and decides what's right or wrong. And here he was, living on their little street, taking all of Karen's nonsense without a peep. Until now. Sam looked straight at Karen, raising one eyebrow just a little. "You called 911, on me?" he asked, his voice still calm but with a tiny edge to it. "Ma'am, that's a federal offense." Oh, snap. The air felt like it exploded without a sound. Karen's face went white, then red, then white again. She opened her mouth to talk, but nothing came out, just a little squeak, like a mouse caught in a trap. The officers turned to her, their faces serious now. "Is that true, ma'am?" the tall one asked, stepping closer to her porch. "Did you call us out here for this?" Karen stammered, I didn't know. I thought he was just." But it didn't matter what she thought anymore. The tables didn't just turn, they flipped right over. Sam wasn't the one in trouble now, Karen was. Calling 911 for no good reason is a big deal, especially when it's on a federal judge. That's like breaking a super important rule. The neighbors started buzzing, whispering to each other. "She's in trouble now," Mrs. Jenkins said, clutching her watering can. "A judge? Sam's a judge?" The dad down the street dropped his sponge, soapy water splashing everywhere. The kids on bikes giggled, "Karen's gonna get it?" Even the birds seemed to chirp louder, like they knew something wild was happening. Sam stood there, holding his badge, cool as a cucumber. He didn't yell or gloat. He didn't need to. That badge said it all. The cops looked at each other, then back at Karen. The shorter one flipped his notepad shut and said, "Ma'am, we're gonna need to talk to you." Karen shook her head fast, her blonde hair flapping. "No, no, you don't understand. He's the problem. His car, his flowers, his trash bins." But the officers weren't listening to her excuses. They'd heard enough. Sam put his badge back in his pocket and crossed his arms, watching her squirm. That smirk was still there, just a little bigger now. Karen's big win? Gone. Her plan to make Sam look bad backfired big time. She thought she was the queen, the one who'd come out on top. But now she was the one looking silly and maybe even in trouble with the law. The cops stepped onto her porch, and she backed up, tripping over her own flip-flops. "Wait, wait," she squeaked, but it was too late. Sam had flipped the whole game. All those weeks of her picking on him, yelling at him, thinking he was weak, it all crashed down in one shiny, badge-shaped moment. The neighbors couldn't stop staring. This was better than TV. Sam, the quiet guy they barely noticed, was a federal judge. And Karen, the loudmouth who bossed everyone around, was caught in her own trap. The air buzzed with shock and excitement. What would happen next? Would Karen get arrested? Would Sam say more? Everyone waited, eyes glued to the scene. This was the big reveal, the moment Sam's secret came out and turned everything upside down. Karen thought she'd won, but oh, how wrong she was. The real winner was standing right there, badge in his pocket, watching it all unfold. Boom, just like that, the neighborhood would never be the same. Okay, here's where everything wraps up and justice finally shows up. Karen Thompson stood on her porch, her face turning redder than the roses she bragged about all the time. Those roses were her pride, bright and perfect in her yard, but now her cheeks were even brighter. She couldn't believe what was happening. I didn't know," she squeaked, her voice all high and shaky, like a scared little mouse. She waved her hands, trying to explain. "I didn't know he was a judge. I thought he was just some guy." But it was way too late for excuses. Sam Carter wasn't messing around anymore. He'd had enough of her nonsense. Sam stood there, cool and calm, like he always was. He looked at the two police officers, the tall one with the mustache and the short one with the notepad, and gave them a little nod. "False reporting, harassment, take her in," he said. His voice wasn't loud or mean, just steady, like he was telling them the weather. False reporting means calling the cops when there's no real problem, and harassment is being mean to someone over and over. Karen had done both, big time. The officers didn't even blink. They stepped right up to Karen, pulling out their shiny silver handcuffs. Click, click, they snapped them on her wrists, right there in front of everyone. Karen's clipboard, that thing she carried everywhere like a queen's crown, slipped out of her hands. It hit the sidewalk with a loud clatter, bouncing once before landing flat. Her big sunglasses fell off her nose too, dangling around her neck. She looked so small now, not like the bossy lady who yelled at everyone. "Wait, no," she cried, tugging at the cuffs. "This isn't fair. I didn't mean it." But the cops didn't listen. They took her by the arms, one on each side, and started walking her to their patrol car. Her flip-flops slapped the ground as she stumbled along, her blonde hair bouncing all messy. The car door opened, and they helped her inside. Slam the door shut, and that was it. The whole neighborhood watched, quiet as can be. Nobody said a word. They just stared, eyes wide, mouths open. Karen's reign of terror, the days of her yelling, leaving notes, and bossing everyone around, was over. Done. Finished. She didn't go out with a bang or a big fight. Nope, it ended with a whimper, a tiny, scared sound as she sat in that police car, looking out the window. All those weeks of picking on Sam, thinking she was the big winner, crashed down in one moment. The queen of the HOA wasn't the queen anymore. She was just Karen, and she'd lost. Sam turned to the crowd, his hands in his pockets like always. He didn't smile big or cheer. He just looked at everyone. Mrs. Jenkins with her watering can, the dad with his soapy car, the kids on their bikes, and spoke real simple. "I moved here for peace," he said, his voice clear and strong. "Let's keep it that way." That was all he needed to say. No shouting, no showing off, just a few words that stuck with everyone. He gave a little nod, then walked back to his house, the red door closing behind him. The neighbors stood there a minute longer, letting it sink in. Sam wasn't just the new guy. He was a judge, a real, important judge, and he just fixed everything. From that day on, things changed fast. The street felt different, lighter somehow. People didn't whisper about Karen anymore. They didn't roll their eyes or groan when they saw her coming, because she wasn't coming. She was gone, at least for a while, dealing with the police and her big mistake. And Sam? Folks started treating him like a hero. When he stepped outside, Mrs. Jenkins would wave and call, "Good morning, Sam," with a big smile. The dad down the street would give him a thumbs up over the fence. Even the kids on bikes would slow down and say, "Hi, Mr. Sam," all polite and happy. No more nasty notes showed up on Sam's car. No more yelling about his flowers or his trash bins. The neighborhood didn't need Karen's clipboard anymore, they didn't want it. People started relaxing, enjoying their yards without worrying about silly rules. If someone's grass grew a little long, nobody cared. If a mailbox was a tiny bit crooked, oh well. It was like the street took a big, deep breath and decided to just be nice again. Sam had brought peace, just like he said he wanted. And everyone was okay with that. Karen's house sat quiet for a bit. Her roses still bloomed, but nobody saw her watering them. Word got around that she had to go to court, not Sam's court, but a different one, because calling 911 for no reason was a real problem. She might get a fine or even some time away. Nobody knew for sure, but they didn't feel too bad. She had it coming, Mrs. Jenkins said one day, shaking her head. Picking on Sam like that, what was she thinking? The dad nodded. "Yeah, you don't mess with a judge." They laughed a little, but mostly they were glad it was over. Sam kept to himself, same as before, but now people saw him different. He wasn't just the quiet guy with the notebook. He was the one who stood up when it mattered. He didn't need to yell or fight, he just showed that badge and let the truth do the work. The neighbors started talking about him like a friend. "Sam's a good guy," they'd say. "Keeps things calm." And he did. The street stayed peaceful, just how he liked it. No more drama, no more trouble, just sunny days and friendly waves. Kids started playing outside more, laughing and racing their bikes. Dogs barked at squirrels again, not at Karen's shouting. Even the birds seemed happier, chirping away like they were celebrating. Sam would sit on his porch sometimes, sipping coffee, watching it all. That little notebook still came out now and then, and he'd scribble something quick. Nobody knew what he wrote, but they didn't mind. "Maybe he's keeping track of the good stuff now," Mrs. Jenkins said with a grin. Whatever it was, it didn't matter. Sam had won, fair and square, and the neighborhood was better for it. So that's how it ended. Karen's big mistake turned into Sam's big win. She thought she could boss him around, but she picked the wrong guy. Justice showed up, quiet but strong, and put things right. The street learned a lesson: don't judge people too fast, and don't be mean for no reason. Sam got his piece, Karen got her lesson, and everyone else got a story they'd never forget. From then on, it was all respect, no complaints, no fights, just a happy little neighborhood again. And that's how it all happened. One quiet guy flipped a big bully's world upside down, and he didn't even have to yell. Pretty cool, right? Sam Carter, the new guy with the red door, turned everything around without making a fuss. Karen Thompson, the loud lady who thought she ruled the neighborhood, ended up in a police car because she didn't know who she was messing with. It's a wild story, and when you think about it, it makes your brain start buzzing with ideas. What does it mean? Why does it matter? Let's talk about that, because this isn't just a fun tale, it's got something big to say. Think about Sam for a second. He was the guy nobody noticed much. He didn't talk loud or act big. He just lived his life, sipping coffee on his porch, scribbling in his little notebook. People walked past him every day, Mrs. Jenkins with her roses, the kids on their bikes, the dad washing his car, and they thought, "Oh, he's just Sam." They didn't see anything special. But Sam was special. He had a badge in his pocket, a job as a federal judge, and a quiet kind of strength that nobody saw coming. He was like a secret superhero, hiding right there in plain sight. And when the time was right, he showed everyone what he was made of. Now think about Karen. She was the opposite: loud, bossy, always in your face. She strutted around with her clipboard, telling people what to do, picking on Sam like he was nothing. She judged him fast, didn't she? She looked at him and thought, he's weak. I can push him around. But she was so wrong. She didn't take the time to wonder who he really was. She just saw a quiet guy and decided he wasn't important. That was her big mistake. Sometimes the people you think are small or boring are the ones holding all the cards, the ones who can surprise you when you least expect it. That's what this story makes you think about. Sometimes the quiet ones, the ones you don't notice, are the strongest. They don't need to shout or show off. They just wait, and when the moment comes, they stand up tall. Sam didn't fight Karen with mean words or loud arguments. He didn't need to. He had truth on his side, and that was enough. It's like a lesson for all of us: don't be too quick to decide what someone's like. You might miss the real story hiding underneath. So, next time you meet someone new, what are you gonna do? Maybe you'll see a kid at school who doesn't talk much, or a neighbor who keeps to themselves. Will you think, oh, they're not a big deal, and walk away? Or will you wonder, hey, maybe there's more to them? You never know who's got a badge or a backbone waiting to surprise you. People aren't always what they seem on the outside. Sam looked like just a guy, but he was a judge. Karen looked like a queen, but she was just a bully who got caught. Looks can trick you, so maybe it's smart to give everyone a chance. This story's got me thinking about bullies too. Karen was a bully, wasn't she? She picked on Sam because she thought she could get away with it. She thought being loud and mean made her strong. But real strength isn't about yelling or pushing people down. Real strength is what Sam had: staying calm, knowing who you are, and standing up when it counts. Bullies like Karen might seem big for a while, but they don't win in the end. Sam showed that. He turned her whole world upside down without even raising his voice. That's pretty awesome when you think about it. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved? She was mean to Sam for weeks, leaving notes, calling the cops, acting like she owned the street. Then, boom, it all fell apart. She ended up in handcuffs, and Sam walked away the winner. Some might say, yeah, she had it coming. Others might feel a little bad for her, like, poor Karen, she didn't know. What's your take? Drop it in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think. Stories like this make us talk and wonder, and that's the fun part. This whole thing leaves you with a good feeling, doesn't it? It's like a reminder that good guys can win, even when they're quiet. Sam didn't need to be loud or flashy to beat Karen. He just needed to be himself, a guy with a badge and a plan. It makes you want to cheer for the underdogs, the people who don't show off but still come out on top. Maybe you're a little like Sam, quiet but strong in your own way. Or maybe you know someone who is. Either way, it's cool to think about how much power can hide in the people we least expect. So here's the big takeaway: don't judge too fast. Give people a chance to show who they are. You might meet someone amazing, a friend, a hero, or just someone with a great story. And if you ever run into a bully like Karen, don't worry too much. They might seem big and scary, but they don't always win. Sometimes the quiet ones, the Sams of the world, have the last laugh. That's a pretty inspiring thought, right? It makes you feel like anything's possible, no matter who you are. I hope you loved this story as much as I did telling it. It's got everything: surprises, a bad guy getting caught, and a good guy winning. What did you like best? Was it Sam's big reveal with the badge? Or maybe Karen's face when she realized she was in trouble? Let me know below, I'm dying to hear. And stick around, because I've got more stories coming your way. Who knows what'll happen next? Maybe another quiet hero, or a bully who learns a lesson. Whatever it is, I'll catch you in the next one. Keep being awesome, and don't forget, you never know who's got a badge or a backbone ready to surprise the world.